Barry, it's so great to connect today. You conduct research, you write, you consult, you teach on topics that I'm very interested in as a leadership professor. So thanks so much for coming on the podcast today.
It's a real pleasure, Nate. Good to meet you.
As you think back on all of the work you've done, what lessons would you most like to pass on to others?
Not everybody can be a leader. It's absolutely compelling. The data shows that, everybody has an ideal position somewhere, but for a lot of people, it's not a leadership position. So we looked at the traits and characteristics that predicted effective leadership. And in a database of over 58,000 C-suite executives from larger companies around the world, we found only 4% of those leaders were in the top quartile of our scoring database. So effective leadership is incredibly rare. Outstanding leadership isn't the norm. Outstanding leadership is beyond the reach of the vast majority of people who might aspire to those roles. So the compelling message that we put out there is a role out there for you. There's a role where you can be fulfilled, where you can be brilliant, where you can do really, really meaningful work. But for most of you, it might not be a top-level leadership role in a company.
It's interesting because in a business school, we talk a lot about leadership. I teach a course on leadership. I don't know how many colleges, universities, companies teach courses on followership and how to be a good follower, when in reality, that's what it takes for most people to thrive in an organization, is to be a good follower.
Well, to be a good follower, you really need a leader who's worth following.
Yeah.
It's difficult to a bad leader. So it does start with leadership characteristics and capabilities. It does start with this, outstanding picture of leadership that we all aspire to. If I want to follow a leader, I want to follow an outstanding leader, somebody who's driving value, somebody who's setting a very clear direction. And we identified the 5 characteristics in the book, the 5 talents that really matter. But if you really want to encapsulate what goes into outstanding leadership, it's really covered in those 5 areas. Just really briefly, you've got to be able to set direction. You've got to be able to harness the energy of yourself and the people around you. You've got to be able to exert pressure. And that means sometimes you've got to change people's minds. You've got to push forward even in the face of resistance. You've got to build connectivity. We don't want leaders sitting in isolation from the rest of their organizations. We want everybody involved. And then we need to control traffic. And controlling traffic is a metaphor for handling all the executional complexity that makes businesses succeed. No one leader is brilliant in all those 5 areas, Nate. You look in our database, people have got weaknesses, people have got gaps. That's normal. But you need to be able to manage them. And the outstanding leaders are the ones who can do that.
I just had a thought. I'm gonna have to edit this, but I had a thought that just slipped me right away. I might have to go to something else because it's.
Well, here's something for you to think about, Nate. And, in your program at your university, I'd be interested in not only your view on this, but on students' views of this. If you look at employee engagement data, and, for the sake of argument, it's a pretty effective data point for measuring effective management and leadership. How you treat people, how you engage people, how you involve them. The engagement data in the US has been static for 30 years.
Yeah.
And yet we invest billions of dollars a year in leadership and management training. Why? Why aren't we moving the needle? And this gets back to the point I made at the beginning that, relatively few people can achieve excellence in leadership. Far too many people occupy higher level management and leadership roles who should not be there.
So in your book, The 5 Talents, are you focusing on trying to help the top 5% get into the top 2 or 3%? Are you helping people that are just on the fringe, that are close to being leaders, break into being good leaders? Or is this more just an accurate description of the state of affairs today?
Well, I'll start with your last point first. It is an accurate description of the state of affairs today, which is why so many companies struggle with growth. But in every organization we work with, we find outstanding leaders that the organizational leadership know nothing about. And they're hidden in the organization. They're suppressed. They're beneath what we call a blocker, a manager who's going nowhere, who's not particularly good, but survives. And, we've got a number of examples in the book of organizations where, when we've dug deep into them, we found brilliant people, but nobody knows about them. Nobody talks about them. They're not on any succession planning lists because, there are people above them who either aren't managing them effectively or are contributing to a situation where those leaders leave, where they end up being outstanding leaders in one of your competitors.
So how do you go about, or how do these companies go about identifying these leaders who are being blocked?
Well, that's our job. So when we partner with the clients we work with, one of the things that we want to do straight away is take an inventory of leadership skills, talents, and capabilities across the top levels of the organization, and then sit down with the CEO and the head of HR or whoever and say, this is what we've found, show us your lists. Now, here's something else that will interest you. Every single company has a high-performing leader list or a high-potential leader list. These are the people that the company believes they want to make a bet on for future leadership roles when they acquire the relevant experience or whatever it is. Every time we measure those high-potential pools, they conform to a normal curve of distribution. Mm. So what we're really finding is that what leaders are doing is they're picking likable leaders. They're not necessarily picking the most effective people. And sometimes really, really good leaders, they came through the organization. They were a bit of a handful. They weren't easy to manage.
Yeah.
And the ones who survived and got to the top positions, all credit to them. But in many cases, they didn't make it. They were suppressed. And the handful that they represented influenced the likability characteristics through which the organization places a higher value. And, there are very, very many nice leaders in companies around the world, but they're not particularly effective.
And it just makes me think of Steve Jobs and how he excelled in some aspects of leadership and got fired at one point, came back, always excelled in some things, but completely failed in other ways. And so it just reminds me, to your point, your data show that no leader is excellent at all 5 of these aspects. Sometimes if you're good enough at just 1 or 2 or 3, you can maybe be effective, depending on how you define effective. But I just think it's interesting that your data show what many of us kind of know intuitively, that it is really hard to be excellent at multiple things like this. And maybe the last question, Barry, is you think about your work and your book that you have. A lot of the work, it sounds like, is identifying leaders based on the 5 talents that really matter. Do you find that you're able to move the needle for any of the leaders on these talents, or is it really just about doing a better job of identifying the people who have these talents and abilities?
Have you ever met a socially dysfunctional individual who became relationally sophisticated just through the coaching and guidance that you gave them? Now, the answer is no, of course, because I'm giving you a ridiculously extreme example. But the aim isn't to become brilliant in 5 areas. The aim is to manage them. The aim is to make sure that you build a team where, if you're not particularly good with controlling the traffic, you're not good at managing the widgets, managing the flow, managing work process, you better make sure you got people on your team who can do that.
Yeah.
And some people land in that position by accident. I don't want people trying to be average at some things. I've never met a world-class organization that was built on leaders doing things to an average level. We want leaders to be brilliant in the areas that we can identify and then manage those gaps. And those gaps are managed by people who are brilliant in those areas. If you can get that working, you end up with a much more virtuous situation. And in our work, when we work with CEOs or leaders, we're trying to help surround them with the right kinds of capabilities and talents. We don't expect them to be brilliant at everything. In fact, we think it's impossible.
Yeah, it just makes me think of the accountant who's got great accounting skills and they're thinking like, if only I could be a great marketer and if I understood the legal and the marketer is thinking, if only I could understand how to hire great people and deliver great strategy. And really what they should be asking themselves is, who can I work with who can help me augment, who can complement my strengths?
What role is the best fit for your dominant capabilities? That's the question everybody should answer. And for too many people, it isn't a leadership role.
Yeah. Well, Barry, that's great. I love it reminds me of this book by Jeffrey Pfeffer, Stanford professor, called Leadership BS. And in that book, he just talks about some of the BS that becomes so commonplace in the leadership world. And I appreciate you sharing the truth, the hard lessons that people need to hear, that it's a little bit like taking the medicine that maybe we don't always want to take. But by understanding this point that we need to find the lesson, or how did you phrase, what was that last phrase you said again? People
Finish
need
your,
to,
well, you do your version of it and I'll remember my words.
it was something about you need to find the role that you,
Oh, you need to find the role that is the best fit for your talents.
yeah, you need to find the role that is the best fit for your talents. Such a great, important, valuable lesson.
People will have fun. They'll deliver great value. People will want to work with them. If you're in a role that is not a fit for your best talent, you'll be miserable and you'll make the people around you miserable. Got to stop lying to people by pretending they can be anything they want to be. And we've got to give them really good, informed, scientifically based guidance. And that's what we do.
That's great. Find the role that best fits your talents. Thanks so much for coming on the podcast today, Barry.
It's a pleasure.
Okay, I'll hit stop. Geez, sorry, that was a little bit of a